Today, Great.com talks with Seneca Crosland, who is the president of Canadian Horse Defense Coalition. If you have not heard of them, they are an organization working towards ending horse slaughter and the live export of horses for slaughter for human consumption. If you're new to the podcast, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we are going to learn about what is going on behind the scenes here at auctions and slaughterhouses and how this situation, this circumstance has affected more than 1,600 horses in the last 12 months. Ms. Seneca, really appreciate your time and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. For the folks that have not had the chance to hit your website, I mentioned offline, as I started to do a little bit of homework, I found my jaw on the floor of just the problem that you guys are tackling, that you're trying to solve, the market, the niche area that you're trying to solve, and then your approach to the challenge. And so I'd like to start here and maybe just give you a chance to talk a little bit about the organization and what you all do.
Yeah, the Canadian Horse Defense Coalition, we're committed to ending the slaughter of horses for human consumption in Canada, as well as the exports of horses to other countries for the same purpose. And we feel that the reason we are concentrating on horses is because, other than that we all love horses, many of us know horses personally. I have two of my own, but horses are very, very difficult to slaughter. I have watched hours and hours of videotape taken covertly at equine slaughterhouses in Canada, and it is just heart-rending to watch. There are many, many mishits that happen. The worst I saw was on a big draft horse where he was hit 11 times with a captive bolt in the forehead. And it was only after those 11 hits that he finally went down. Wow. And this is not, that was the worst. That was the longest that I saw. But there are many, many incidences of where horses get hit, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They're rearing, they're throwing their heads back. It's very, very difficult to get that shot in the right place. Horses are prey animals, they're flight animals. They're not going to stand there peacefully and die. They can smell what's happened in the kill box before them. There's blood and brain matter and other things in the kill box. And I know it sounds terrible, but sometimes we have to paint a graphic picture for people to understand what happens. And for those people who know horses, they know how flighty they can be. They can a twig snaps and they're just off and running. And yet they're intelligent and they can bond with people. They bond with one another. And we just feel totally that horses should not be killed and eaten by humans.
Yeah. I want to double click on, unfortunately, it's hard to talk about this topic if we're not graphic, right? But like you said, I think a light needs to be cast on that, shed on that. And if you're not watching the video like you have and sat and analyzed hours of video and seen how harsh this is, you at least need to be able to hear about it in a 30-minute podcast and know that this exists. Like I said, I mentioned this offline as I jumped online. I'm very aware of the chicken coop farming, right? And the mass farming they'll do with chickens or horses or cows or pigs. And I've seen things like that. Even here in Texas, they'll go through and shoot hogs with rifles. And so I've seen, out of a helicopter, right? I've seen crazy things like that. But as I did my deep dive in your website, this was a totally new problem or totally new area, a totally new realm for me. I want to double click, triple click on the problem itself. But first, let me ask you, why does this interest you? Now, maybe interest isn't the best word, but why have you decided to let this consume you, right? Not the chickens or the shooting from helicopters, or this seems to be a very unique problem in its own corner of the world. How did you find it, and why has it consumed most of your time, your focus, your attention?
Right. To be clear, I understand that slaughter is a horrible thing for all animals.
Sure.
I totally feel that. I focused on horses because, well, I had horses. I have horses currently. And I know, as I mentioned, the reactions that they have to fearful things. I know their intelligence and that kind of thing. I feel that they're the next best friend we have after dogs and cats, close to the hearts of people. If people hear about dogs and cats being treated that way, well, that would be just horrendous. There would be a stop to it very quickly. But horses are considered to be companion animals, working partners for people, but also some people believe that they should be killed and eaten. And so it kind of puts them in a strange gray zone that way. And I feel that it's the next animal that we need to be working on. If we want to feel clear, about things, if we want to be kind, if we want to be compassionate and learn about other beings other than just ourselves.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the flow of, we're talking about this, this auction plus slaughterhouse sort of system. And for someone that's never put eyes on the flow of things, right? The flow of a horse and the money and the capital and how things work. Can you talk a little bit about this? Where the horse comes from, who's buying the horse, why are they buying it? Are they shipping it? Does it stay in the area? Like, can you just talk a little bit about the problem itself? What's going on?
Well, first of all, you might have family farms, pets, horses that are pets or ridden by children, and then the children outgrow the horse. Parents think, okay, well, we have to find a home for the horse. Let's take them to auction. Okay, so that's one case scenario. Then you've got the breeder out there who has maybe bred too many horses, isn't able to sell them. And so then again, auction is an out for the breeder. Horses can come from trail riding outfits, rodeos. They can come from all kinds of directions, and off they go to auction. The feedlot operators are there. The meat buyers are there bidding on them. Sometimes you get rescue people in there as well, bidding against the meat buyers. But the lion's share is bought up by the meat industry, and so off they go to a feedlot. They're kept there, or sometimes they can go straight to the slaughterhouse feedlots, and that's how it happens. And no horse is safe, we feel, because there are stolen horses as well. Every now and again, a story pops up in the news. Someone has lost their horse or two horses, and they can't be found anywhere. How does one find them in those massive feedlots that house all kinds of horses? It's really hard to do. Most times when this happens, the horses are missing forever.
What is the second option? I mean, in the example that you gave there of a family buys a horse for, their 7-year-old or their 12-year-old who wants a horse. Right. And as they grow, at some point they go to college or whatever. And then they have this horse that the parents don't really want to take care of, or whoever it is, the kid is no longer there. Maybe, again, this is a brand new industry to me, but maybe the family says, this is going to be the next best thing is let's put this horse in a place that they're going to be taken care of and bring them to auction. If they weren't to go to auction, what is the next best thing? Or is there a way to control who gets your horse at auction? Like, I don't want someone that slaughters horses to buy this. Like, how do we ensure that doesn't happen?
Well, the best thing is to prevent that horse from going to auction in the first place.
Got it.
What that family should do is put the word out. Who would like to buy this horse? Keep the price above meat prices so that a meat buyer doesn't come along and say, hey, I've got a good home for your horse. Whereas in fact, all they want to do is sell it for slaughter. So that's the way, put the word out. There are, if they absolutely, can't sell the horse, then reach out to rescue organizations. And there's a growing number of those in Canada. Reach out, put it out on social media, that kind of thing, but keep that price up. We always recommend to people when they're rehoming a horse, have paperwork. have the new owner sign a contract saying, that I will keep this horse. I will let you know if I want to rehome the horse. And they should, if possible, do follow-up visits. They should phone for veterinary references, farrier references, anything they can get on that new home, and just ensure that that horse is going to be going to a good home and not to a meat buyer. And I, in no way, I know that this happens in families. Things change in people's lives, and they have to, rehome their horses. But please do the very best you can, to find the horse a good home. And if the horse is old and ill, then I recommend a veterinarian to come in, humanely euthanize that horse rather than putting it through the rigors of transport and the slaughterhouse.
Yeah. I think you drawing the parallel to companion animals of dogs and cats and things that people take in as pets and use as pets. If at some point you got a dog for your child, and then that child went off to high school, even if you didn't want to take care of it, you're not going to auction the dog off, or go in and try to slaughter or butcher the dog or whatever that is, right? Like, I like the parallel that you've drawn there and into horses and being able to, in that dog scenario, you get to the point where it's time to, guys, I can't take care of this anymore. You would post on Facebook and share on Instagram and ask your friends to share, and you'd put out prices and go to places that buy and sell dogs. You'd go to marketplaces. Like you would make an attempt, like you said, to find it a legit home with a family that will take care of it. You're not going to just take it to auction and get rid of it in a snap, right? You want to make sure that someone's going to love it just as much as you did. So I think that was great advice. I like the parallel there. I do want to ask you, how severe is this problem? Talk to me about the scale. How many horses are caught in this year over year or monthly? Whatever numbers you have, talk to me about the scale of this.
Sure. There are two different facets to this. If we're talking about domestic horse slaughter, that's where the vast numbers of horses go. Actually, they're slaughtered in two different slaughterhouses in Canada. Now, there used to be more equine slaughterhouses in Canada, and then a few years ago, there were just two because the other ones had closed down. So now it's really difficult to find out numbers because the government has said that it's a family-owned business now, that it's the same family that owns both of the slaughterhouses, one in Alberta and one in Quebec. So they're not releasing numbers. However, we've been able to figure out there's ways of, when you look at, the amount of the weight of meat and so on, and you compare it to other years, then we've been able to figure out that possibly somewhere between 20 and 30,000 horses are slaughtered in these two slaughterhouses every year in Canada.
Wow.
But yeah, and then there's the separate issue of sending horses off to countries like Japan for slaughter there. And in 2020, there were about 1,600 horses who were sent there to Japan to be slaughtered. So as you can tell from the numbers that I'm mentioning, it is a far lower number. But the problems are still there, and people are really getting irate about this when they think about these large draft horses that are bred solely for the purpose, like cows. They're sold for the market, and then they're sent off on this trip to mainly Japan. South Korea takes some as well, but not recently so much. They're put in flimsy little wooden crates with often not enough headroom. You can see their ears are poking up at the top. There are often 3 to 4 big draft horses crammed into these crates. And, these are big horses. They're not pony size, and they're not even regular horse size. They're the huge Belgians, Percherons, and crosses, and so on. And so then they're sent on a trip that usually the flight takes about 10 to 12 hours, somewhere in there. But from start to finish, from the time that they are loaded up at the feedlot in Canada, they go to the airport, they sit around on the tarmac, they're loaded into crates, sit around on the tarmac some more, and then the flight, and then they end up at the other end, and then they go off to the feedlot or slaughterhouse there at the other end, feedlot usually, because they'll hang on to them for a while. We're looking at upwards of 28 hours altogether for these horses.
In a box, just standing in a box.
Yeah. and there's no room to lie down. They don't get fed or watered or anything. And if something happens, like, there's something that causes a plane delay or whatever, then it's that much longer. And so for these big animals to be crammed in like that is just unconscionable.
Yeah, I mean, you drew a great a picture there, which it's inhumane. It seems insane. And the pictures that I saw on your that you guys have, and some of the PDFs and giveaways on your website, a couple of them are lean towards the graphic piece, and they are so eye opening to see 3 or 4 big horses tucked into a box. It doesn't make any sense. Where I want to know how this is happening is the question I want to ask. Like, are these auctions not, are there no regulations? Are people not coming in and checking? Like, I think that's the question I have is, are there no regulations at these auctions? Coming from a small town where here in Texas, we have FFA, right? Where, people learn agriculture and farming, and they raise animals, and there's a very humane way that they do things. And by the time they get to their auction or someone is able to come in and buy it, they have to run this thing through tests, and they do blood work, and there's all sorts of cool things that they do to make sure that this animal is treated and raised properly, the right way. Are there similar regulations here? Can any horse be entered into this? Like, are there no regulations in the area against this?
Yeah, any horse can go. Any horse can be sent to slaughter. Any horse can enter an auction. The only hope for that horse is that someone will come and, like a rescuer or somebody, a private home wanting the horse, will outbid the meat buyer.
Wow.
But no, there's nothing required. They will just bring the horse to auction, and it goes on from there.
At those auctions, do you have any idea of let's say there's a crowd of 100 people there. Are 50 of them meat buyers or folks that are looking at those horses as a product and not a thing or an animal? Like, is 60% of them, 80% of them, 10%? Like, how many people at that auction are there for meat versus are there for horses? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally depends on the auction, where the auction is held. They're sort of termed, meat auctions, because they know that the meat buyers are going to be there, and they're often sitting. I've been to an auction; they're often sitting in the front row, bidding away. But these days, they have, because of COVID, they're having online auctions, of course. So I would say that there's a mishmash. There always will be some, rescuers and private homes there looking to see what horse they could buy or bid on. But for the meat auctions, I would say, yeah, that's what happens, is that it's the meat guys that are there bidding on the horses. So I'm shaking my head because each question I'm learning something new here, and this is it's so baffling. Are people targeting horses? I have to make sure this question is odd to ask, but what is the benefit? Like, is horse meat so rare? Is it like Wagyu beef? Like, does it just taste great? Is it like rhino horn where there's no true benefit to it, but for some reason, and Japan or in other areas, that it is sought after for other sort of health reasons or benefits? Like, why horse meat? Like, why is this even happening? Are cows and pigs and deer, and like, is this not enough? Why are people going after horses? Yeah, one has to wonder. The people who eat horse meat tout the fact that it tastes good. They like it, this kind of thing, and maybe it's a tradition for them. For instance, in Canada, in general, like most of the horse meat is shipped abroad. But in Canada, in Quebec, horse meat can be found there in supermarkets, restaurants, that type of thing. And it has been a traditional sort of cuisine for them. Wow. So horse meat can be found even on the West Coast, like in delis and that type of thing. You can sometimes find it in, maybe European delis and that kind of thing. But if we're talking Canada, then Quebec would be the main place where horse meat is consumed. But people from Quebec have told me too that it's not like it's really prevalent. Like it's not like everywhere you go, there's horse meat. You have to really kind of go looking for it. Mm. And yeah, and then of course in Japan, when the live horses are shipped there, or if we ship frozen meat to Japan, it is a part of their cuisine there. That for goodness knows what reason.
Yeah, So I've talked a little bit about the problem. I've talked about the different moving pieces, each of which are just as baffling, equally as baffling. I want to spend just a few minutes talking about the solution, sort of twofold. One, what are you doing? Two, what could we be doing? First, the Canadian Horse Defense Coalition. Can you talk to me about the action or the roadmap, how you guys are tackling this problem? Is this on a one-off, sort of locally, case-by-case basis as auctions pop up? Your team are out there picketing the auction and trying to drive people away from it? Or are you pursuing this from a legal stance, right, where you're in court and trying to solve things that way? How are you involved? What are you doing to tackle this problem?
All of the above, pretty much. We do. There's a legal case going on to do with the live exports. We retained a lawyer to look into that. We lost the first round in court, and an appeal was filed subsequently, and we're waiting for an appeal date. We feel that the judge made some errors there in that court case. So what we were going after is the fact that they're shipping big horses contrary to regulations. Regulations say that the big horses have to be 1 horse per crate rather than 3 or 4, and that they need to have sufficient head clearance. And so that's what the lawsuit was all about. So we are appealing that. So that's one thing. Then public awareness is a huge thing. And yes, groups of people do go out to like the Calgary airport to protest those shipments. And they have stood in front of slaughterhouses and that type of thing. And we've done petitions and polls and that type of thing. We do have a political campaign going on where we're asking people to contact their members of parliament to talk to them about this problem. We would like to see an end to this all. There is a wonderful member of parliament. His name is Nathaniel Erskine Smith, and he has sponsored an e-petition, which so far has almost 40,000 signatures on it. And this is an official e-petition that will be presented to Parliament when it comes to June 18th. That's the deadline for signatures there. So what we're asking is for Canadians to sign the petition. Canadians living abroad can also sign the petition. Unfortunately, U.S. citizens or citizens of other countries can't. But we do ask, like probably a lot of people know other people in Canada. No Canadians. Send them, go to our website. It's CanadianHorseDefenseCoalition.org. It comes right up on our homepage. Send them the link to that petition and ask them to sign it. The more signatures, the better. Canadians, we ask to contact their members of parliament, write letters to editors of their local papers, do what it takes to get the word out. We do have a wonderful celebrity on board the cause, the horse exports cause, and she's Jan Arden. She's you probably know Jan Arden.
Yeah. I see the smile break off. Yeah, that's a great.
Wonderful singer, and songwriter, and she's come forward with her star power, speaking out against the horse exports.
Wow. You were headed towards and maybe even hit on the question that I wanted to close with of we talked about how you're tackling the problem, how you've been involved, the organization has been involved. I wanted to close with how others could get involved locally. Those that are in Canada or close to you can obviously get involved with this petition. They can get involved with your movement. The folks here in the U.S. or that are maybe sitting in other countries, areas of the world, any recommendations, things that they could be doing? I mean, obviously, you mentioned there, if you know someone in Canada, it's time to reach out and make sure that you're pointing them to this movement. Is there anything else that we could be doing in our own communities or in support with you? Maybe donations, volunteer hours. How else could we be involved?
Sure, donations and volunteering from the United States. Doing, we can be in touch with these people by email if they're interested in helping. The other thing is that the SAFE Act has been introduced in the U.S. and that's to protect horses from slaughter. That's to stop slaughter and the exports to other countries. Which would, if that could be passed, that would be wonderful for Canada, because then that many U.S. horses wouldn't be crossing the border for slaughter over here. It would be a big, huge step. So if Americans could please support that act, speak to the legislators there, and ask them to support that act.
Yeah. Seneca, thank you very much for your time today. I said offline, I've said a couple times here online, this is a eye-opening issue, and I feel honored that I've had the chance to be able to maybe play just a small part in shedding some light on this situation. And I will continue to sort of stay in tune with the momentum that you've built and continue to build. But very, very grateful for your time. And
we're so grateful to you, Joshua, for having us. This is wonderful to get the word out and for the horses.
Definitely. Yeah. To the listeners, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or whatever podcast app that you're tuning in from. This will show the algorithm that this is an important conversation, so more people can learn about the importance of not only doing their homework and learning more about what's going on in the world and the community around them, but in the importance of having a voice, standing up and doing what's right.